Ladies and gentlemen, this is a talk show. More than a catbird hates a cat, or a criminal hates a clue. Like the Axis hates the United States, that's how much I love you. Like a sailor's sweetheart hates the sea, or a juggler hates a shove. Like the Hays Code frowns on low-cut gowns, that's how much you love. I love you more than a wasp can sting, and more than a hangnail hurts. I love you more than commercials are a bore, and more than the grapefruit squirts. I swear to you by the stars above and below, if such there be, like a bride would resent a blessed event, that's how you are loved by me. More than a lifeguard hates to swim, or a lioness hates the zoo. Like a wife detests unexpected guests, that's how much I love you. More than a waiter hates to wait, or a writer hates to read. Like a batter dislikes those who call 3 strikes, that's how much you need. I need you more than a hive can itch, and more than a chilblain shows. I yearn for you in an ivy-clad canoe, like a liver yearns for pills. I swear to you by the earth below and above, if such there be, like a dachshund abhors revolving doors, that's how you are loved by me. Welcome back, our co-host, Adam Bailey. Come on in, Adam.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Kristin, and thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We have an excellent show for you this afternoon. We have Toronto's comedian extraordinaire, Robert Watson, who runs our very own Gay AF Comedy Night. And all the way from Tampa Bay, Florida, we have Trish Parry, who is kicking off the Tampa Bay, Florida Digital Fringe Festival today. But before we get to them, let's start off by talking about Donald Trump. And let's get this out of the way. Trying to do entertainment during this moment in Donald Trump's presidency is like putting on a clown show for a palliative care unit. Sure, everyone has smiles painted on their faces, but we're all just waiting for the inevitable to happen, and some of us are praying for death. Oh, sweet COVID, please take me now. This week, Donald Trump decided to float the idea by tweet that he was going to postpone the elections coming up in November. Now, of course, he does this on the morning of the funeral for civil rights legend and elder statesman John Lewis. Heaven forbid anyone else have control of the news cycle for one day, even while they're resting in power. And because Barack Obama was going to be speaking at this funeral, we all know that Donald Trump had the motivation to be a righteous limelight stealer for that day. Now, of course, this seemed to be a little bit of hot air. The president doesn't actually have the power to postpone the election. That power lies in the hands of the Congress, which is currently held by the Democrats, and they're unlikely to do anything to help out Donald Trump. But it seems as if he wanted to further the narrative that in the fall, this election is going to be somehow fraudulent or rigged, giving him the ability to challenge the results if they're not in his favor. Although some people are still worried about Donald Trump being able to push back the election, despite that not technically being in his power. After all, the power of the presidency hasn't actually been tested in this way before. And we all know that if Trump is successful in delaying this election by even 1 minute, that delay will be held in perpetuity. Indeed, this is how many parents are feeling about back to school for their children in September. I mean, after all, school provides a powerful narrative structure for children's years. I mean, we have a strong beginning, middle, and end. And if it doesn't start in September, then when? Now, you might, as I do, have a Facebook feed filled with parents, teachers, and union members who are rightfully worried about sending children back into the petri dish of the public education system during a global pandemic. But according to a recent survey shared by Global News, 58% of parents are looking forward to sending their kids back to school this September, regardless of what happens. That number only goes down in Alberta, of all provinces, although perhaps Jason Kenney has finally given them reason to distrust a conservative government. Still, why do these parents want to send their children back to school so desperately? Is it because their offspring are tiny little narcissistic black holes sucking up all the energy and attention in any space that isn't directly focused on them? Yes. And is it because these parents realize that they are in some sort of Darwinian capitalist system that will reward the foolish and the brave for going out and working during this pandemic and punish the weak, the meek, and the reasonable for taking precautions during this period of our lives? Yes. But it's also what happens to our calendar if we wait for a vaccine to be found and implemented. I mean, it's supposed to come out this winter. That's what scientists say. But if vaccine is approved in February, we get back to school in March. What happens to March break? If the vaccine is approved in March and it isn't implemented until April, what happens to our summer vacations in 2021? These parents are defending the vacations of the entire nation. But it's not just that. They are indeed worried about their children, their sociological, emotional, and their development. I mean, they can see what's happening to their children right now, and they know that if their kids miss out on another regular school year, much like Donald Trump missing this election, they're going to lose touch with social norms, basic empathy, and respect for institutions. But we've all been told that we need to create strong narratives to help us through this COVID-19 quarantine. Things are going to be different during it and after. Fortunately, in the next couple of days, perhaps even this afternoon, Joe Biden will be telling us who his vice presidential nominee and companion for this adventure to the presidency is going to be. And we should get excited about that, because after the shuckster president we've been seeing for the past 4 years, this is the buy one, get one free president. We've got the 46th and the 47th president of the United States of America riding on one ticket, whether you like it or not. And at least one of them is going to be a woman. So look forward to the future that's coming up. We've all been told that it's going to be different after COVID-19. And maybe if all the Americans listening to this episode of This Is a Talk Show register to vote and actually get out to the polls, it will be. But now let's welcome back Kristin Mueller-Heaslip and get on with our show. Kristin, how are you doing today?
I'm okay. How are you?
I mean, I'm doing pretty good. I don't have children, but you do. So I wanted to, since that was the topic of my monologue, I wanted to ask you, what's it like right now and how are you feeling about sending kids back to school?
Well, it's weird because I live in Montreal and they don't, Montreal, Ontario is like, well, you can send your kids back or you can't, you know, it's up to you. If you wanted to keep your kids at home, you can. Quebec is like, no, everyone goes back or you withdraw from the public system altogether, which is a little scary because our government doesn't have the best track record of making good choices. As we talked about on our last show, the bars reopened and there was this big, not big, but there was like a spike of bar-related cases. The bars are still open. no one's changing anything. So it's a little bit like, okay, well, we send them back, and then what happens? And also, it's like logistical stuff, like, well, all right, I'll make them wear masks even though it's not required. But then it's like, how many masks do I feasibly have to have, and how many are coming home at the end of the day? Is it going to be like mittens in the wintertime where you basically sew them to their clothes if you ever want to see them again?
So all your children have little caps that they have to wear all the time with the mask
I don't
sewn to the cap.
know.
I
I was, yeah, go ahead.
I could see that working. That's in Japan. They're doing the thing where they're making the kids wear like angel wings or airplane hats to make sure that they keep the 6 foot social distance. Could you see that working for your kids?
I think they'd be into it, but I don't think the other thing is I don't think that the schools are actually physically set up for it. Either in Quebec or Ontario, like all of the schools are old buildings with bad ventilation and not enough space. So it's which is a very bad combination. So let's anyway, it all might be moot. Things might be blowing up again in a month, and no one will go back to school whatsoever. So who knows?
Well, Toronto officially entered phase 3. That what we're calling phase 3. I know every state, province, country has called the phases something different. Some have 3, some have 2, some have 5. So phase 3 is the phase before everything is perfectly normal again kind of phase. People are allowed indoors, they can eat inside. And just coming home this afternoon from being out, I had to go on the subway, and there was more people on transit than I'd ever seen before. And that kind of, not ever before. But like, yeah, there is a strong before and after with COVID. But there was a lot of people on the subway, and it really put into my head, there's gonna be a lot more people out there. And not everyone was wearing a mask, and you're kind of in the anti-masker space whenever you go outside. So they know that you're not gonna shut everything down just because they're there. I didn't run off the bus because an anti-masker was there. I sat on the bus and held on to my groceries and cried internally.
Yeah, scream inside your heart, like they say. Yeah, I don't know. It's very hard. It's very hard, and yeah, and it's weird because it's like, well, we did all this stuff, and it's like you say, like you were saying about, well, if we don't go back to school, this messes up the whole routine, and how do we even think about a year if it's not in the context of the school year? So it's like people are like on a like moving sidewalk that was like, well, we did this, and now we go and we do the next thing, whether or not it's justified or not. But anyway.
It's one of the shocking things about becoming an adult, especially one that doesn't have children, is how much my calendar is still beholden to the school calendar. And so, yeah, absolutely, 100%, I get what that messes up if this year changes, because I might not be constrained by the school system deciding to add a month on into the summer, but everyone around me will be, and it will be like a domino. It will fall on to me as much as it falls onto anyone else. Anything that you're doing to keep your kids busy and active during this time?
Well, yeah, no, yes, no.
I know you keep them locked in that door behind you. We've heard them bang at the end of shows before.
That's right. They've made some
That's the closet behind you, right?
No, that's the door out of this room.
The door out of that room.
This is the door to the rest of the house. Yeah, no, it's a closet. I keep them in there. They're very quiet. No, they I've been making them go outside a lot more, just to be like, you feel like you just they're like, it's like with dogs, right? If you have a dog, you don't walk your dog will eat everything in your house and destroy your couch. You keep the dog tired, they'll behave better to a certain level. It's the same thing with children. If you just make them run around in circles outside all day, then they will be very tired and they can't get up to much mischief. But yeah.
That was the country summers of my childhood. I would go and stay on a farm north of Tweed where my grandmother lived, and we weren't allowed indoors during the summer. Like, we even slept in tents outside, and that just kept us. We had a bath once a week in a giant metal tub before we went to church. I had the child of a kid who grew up in like 1890. And I seriously had a bath in scalding hot water in a giant metal tub out in the middle of the forest that they had like boiled the water over a fire, and then the next day we went to church. Like, we weren't allowed to like do anything for the rest of that evening. Speaking about backwaters, let's go to our first guest today, who is in the wonderful water city of Tampa Bay, Florida, which of course we tease, but we all know that Florida man and Florida woman does have its own context. Let's bring on Trish Parry.
Hi, Adam. I appreciate it.
Hi, Trish. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I've got a new bike share program that I've been doing. So I've become like a vegan or a CrossFitter. Well, I will talk about my bike riding experiences any chance I get. And because this is an entertainment show, I'm going to skip to something that you have to talk about, which is beer. You're a beer expert.
Yeah. I mean, well, some people would say I spent 5 years touring my brief history of beer show and writing about beer and judging beer, and so yeah. Some might also just say I'm an alcoholic. Yeah.
I prefer the beer expert thing because if I start calling other people alcoholic, then all those fingers that point back at me, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't get to drink so much beer at the moment just because I have a baby that I'm breastfeeding. So, but I still do. I mean, don't get me wrong.
And what beer does a breastfeeding mother recommend for the citizens of the world during a pandemic?
Well, when you first start the pandemic, your instinct would be to have whatever beer is the strongest beer. So like double IPAs or whatever. So like maybe like you can actually, if you can't get this in Toronto, you can definitely drive over to Buffalo. And I know you want to because you have nothing else to do but take a really long drive right now. There's a beer from here in Tampa called High Lie. It's a really intense IPA. I don't know why it's a 7.5% IPA that's like super citrusy and just really intense. So I mean, it's worth a try, and it's from here. But actually, like I think actually, as the pandemic goes on, you kind of have to realize that if you're going to drink this much, you have to even it out and go a little bit lower into the ABVs, right? If you want to so session beers are, I think are the true pandemic beers. Like if you can find a good, I'm sure you got lots of craft breweries there. I think personally for the summer, any APAs, like nice and citrusy, piney, but like still refreshing, not too intense.
What's an APA is American Pale Ale, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And do you have radlers? Because that's something that I sometimes enjoy when I'm trying to keep the buzz but not get drunk. It's kind of like a half juice, half beer mix.
Yeah.
That they sell in some stores.
Yeah, you can get them like in some stores. Like they sell that Schofer, that really good grapefruit one from Germany, the like Schoferhofer or Schofen, you know what I'm talking about? It's really good.
Yes. Oh.
It starts with SCH. But it's great. It's great. You can buy that stuff in the stores, but I'm pretty sure if you walked into a bar here and asked for that, they would look at you like you were crazy and weak.
So walking into bars in Florida, because we're not at the full walk into a bar in Ontario yet. Obviously you heard that my co-host is in Montreal and they do have bars. So maybe we can even bring her back and what is it like being in Florida where COVID is raging and bars are open? How is that hitting you?
Well, first of all, they did shut our bars back down, but our restaurant.
Wait.
Yeah.
Florida did something more responsible than Quebec?
Well, so what happened was our governor didn't do it. It was like there were so many complaints because basically when our bars did open, and I saw it. I work in hospitality, and I saw all the bars doing it. You just had all these kids in their 20s and 30s, just going to bars and sweating all over each other and not socially distancing, even though technically they were supposed to have limited capacities and they were supposed to have social distancing. Like most of the bars just ignored it. And so the guy who oversees all the liquor licenses here in Florida, this guy named Bashir's, I guess there was like a 2-day window where they were like, we're gonna start watching you guys to make sure you're doing the right stuff. And then 2 days after that, this Bashir's guy just jumps on Twitter one morning and just says, shutting all bars down immediately. So,
nice.
Yeah.
I have to find out who that person is in Quebec and write them an angry letter or something like that, because it was public health even said something like it's pretty clear that drunk people can't socially distance, which makes sense. But
I think back in the here comes my beer expert stuff. Back in the Prohibition days, after the Prohibition in Canada, you guys made it where people weren't allowed to stand up and drink. And back then you managed to regulate that pretty well, where people, like, if you wanted to leave your table, the waiter would have to come and physically take your drink for you. I think that might actually still be a law there in some
It's
places.
as you can't move rooms. You can move tables with your drink, but you can't move from one room to another. So if you went from the main dining hall to the patio, or from the dining room to the bar of a restaurant, they'd have to move the beer from your table to the next one. But if you move tables within one room, you're allowed to do that.
Oh, okay. Well, like, I think, like, if we just actually, like, literally they only had 100 code enforcement people for the entire state. So nobody was dinging these establishments for anything they were doing. And it just really sucks because some of them were being responsible, or some of them hadn't even opened yet and were like getting all ready for, like, having really good stuff in place. And then everything got shut back down again because of the assholes. Oh, am I allowed to curse on this show?
Yes, please do.
Yes. In Canada, we don't have the swear limit on TV. If you watch Canada's Drag Race, you'll notice instead of having the one F-bomb that you're allowed at a TV program, they have multiple F-bombs on the Canadian Drag Race. So just so you know, little prompts to Canada, we can swear more on TV than you.
Also, we're not on TV, and the CRTC does not regulate YouTube as far as I know, so please go to town.
There we go.
Also, the Rattler's called Schafferhofer. I just looked it up. Looks great.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good stuff. It's weak as hell, but it's really good.
Yeah. The Rattler is the original cycling energy drink. That is a beer fact that I know. It was invented by German people riding bicycles everywhere because it was half Pilsner and half lemonade.
When I
Trish,
went to
have another show.
What?
Have another show based off that new beer fact.
That'd be like a show I'd have to do with Natalie Freha.
Yeah, exactly.
Fake face. When I went to Oktoberfest, I got a pamphlet that recommended that women drink Radlers at Oktoberfest to protect themselves, and I was like, no, I'm not drinking any Radler. And
I mean, they're nice. They're great. Like when you've been active and you're like, oh, I'm probably a bit dehydrated. I want to drink, so it's 2.5%.
Yeah, or if you want to drink before work, it's much more responsible to do that.
Who doesn't?
No, Trish, we didn't just have you here to talk about beer and bars in the state of Florida, although we want to talk more about Florida, but we have to get to our next guest. And before we do so, we need you to talk about the reason you're on the show, which is that you're doing something that allows you to stay at home and socialize, which is the Tampa Bay Fringe Festival digital online edition. And we want all of our fans of our show to be able to see that online. So why don't you tell us about that?
So that's going to be supposedly live in about 6 minutes. Although I my tech guys are probably literally still writing code right now. You guys just had your digital festival with Toronto Fringe, which was very different from what we're doing. I think a lot of fringes focused more on having a live festival, but what we did was we decided to focus on trying to communicate our sense of community. So I had the overly ambitious idea of creating what is essentially a video game where you get to walk around the neighborhood that our festival takes place in and interact with the chickens and watch a bunch of free shows. We provided all of our artists with stipends for their work because we just noticed that a lot of the live stream stuff, it's like by donation, and it doesn't really add up to a lot. So we're really happy to be basically providing free entertainment for people that are probably financially hurting, as well as help some people that are financially hurting.
So if you go to the Tampa Bay Fringe online, what is the proper name of the festival this year?
It's Tampa Fringe Digital Festival.
The Tampa Fringe Digital Festival. It's free.
Yeah. I mean, there's a button for donating if you're rich and you feel like donating to us, because we basically just used whatever we had to try to give back.
But no, that is amazing. And I'm sure a lot of our clients, a lot of the people who are watching this show are going to be excited by that, because a lot of the fringes did have price tags attached to them for audiences. And if you're stuck at home and you're not making money, this is exciting. And having seen some of it online already, the preview art that you had, I love the 8-bit graphics and the early video game aesthetic that this festival has.
Yeah, it's an interesting mix of really modern 3D, and old school, like Wolfenstein era type stuff. Yeah, it's gonna be cool looking.
That
It
is
is
fantastic. And you mentioned chickens, and there's so much stuff to get involved with Florida and its wild chicken population. But we just don't have the time for that right now. In fact, we have to skip to our next guest, and we'll be back with you in a moment, Trish, to do the news. But it's time for us to welcome to our screens Toronto's own Robert Watson, Gay AF. Put your hands together for Robert Watson.
Ladies and gentlemen and non-binary members of our community, please welcome direct from his living room in his apartment, comedian, singer, and fragrance aficionado extraordinaire, Robert Watson.
Everyone has their own special dream, and my dreams were about to come true. But because of this damn pandemic, all of my dreams have gone down the tubes. I'm in quarantine, boy, and I'm unhappy. Yeah, I'm in quarantine, boy, it's my nightmare. I'm in quarantine, this apartment, I'll never leave you. And if you ask if I'm in quarantine, yes, I'm still there, yeah. Quarantine. I'm isolated day and night. Quarantine. Nothing about this feels very right. I guess it could be much worse, it's true. I could be stuck in quarantine with you. I'm in quarantine, boy, and I'm unhappy. Yeah, I'm in quarantine, boy, it's my nightmare. I'm in quarantine, this apartment, I'll never leave you. And if you ask if I'm in quarantine, yeah, if you ask if I'm in quarantine, yeah, if you ask if I'm in quarantine, yes, I'm still there, yeah. Quarantine. I'm still there. Oh, hello.
Oh,
Hi.
hi, Robert, you crack me up.
Oh, you know I love me a bit of musical comedy, so.
That's why I love going out to your shows, because you always intersperse the comedy and the music, and that's something that Kristin and I both love as well. So thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's great to be here in my apartment.
You don't look like it. The last time I saw your apartment, it didn't look like that.
No, back in the day, I got a green screen, never used it, and then you know, everything that happened, I was like, wait a minute, let's turn our dining room into a green screen, yeah, my husband did call it a green scream studio, actually. So he's been very, very tolerant of how I've transformed our 700 square foot apartment into a couple different studios that I use for online comedy now. So yeah.
Having a patient family is the #1 privilege of this quarantine period, because it means that you have people in your bubble that you can like touch and like squeeze their faces and like be in physical contact with. But also if they're patient and understanding, you also have that space that you need when you're trapped in 700 square feet with someone.
Well, yeah, exactly. And you know, nothing's saying we can't go out for a nice social distant walk if it's getting too much. So, you know, but you figure it out, right? I mean, everything's new in this pandemic for a lot of people. For me in particular, I have something embarrassing to admit, is I was one of those people at the beginning of the pandemic that took to making bread. Not proud of it. Actually, see, this right here, this is one of the great things about doing comedy in your apartments. You can bring props. And this is my lovely bread maker. It says T-Fal, but I call her Big Bessie. And unfortunately, Big Bessie made me big as well. So we're not making bread anymore. Still have a muffin top, though. That's interesting. Yeah, it's the world we live in, right?
All that. I mean, I did the opposite. I got on. I gained weight through the drinking because we were all. That's where we all were with our heavy alcohol content beers. And then, as I was saying earlier, I got on the bike share program, and I've been because I haven't been because I don't trust being on transit, which you shouldn't. You're trapped in a place where there are people, and you can't really be like, excuse me, this homeless person who's using the subway for shelter during the heat isn't wearing a mask. Can we, like, you can't be that person. I mean, you can, but you shouldn't.
So I have done transit, and I do see those people there. In fact, there was a person, a person who should have been wearing a mask, let's just put it that way, but they were not the kind of person who was going to. And I think she was getting a big laugh about sitting somewhere on the subway and then just starting to cough. And
no,
I don't sprint or run, but when she came down near to me and it said, it was like, that doesn't sound real, but I am still running for my life right now. And I did. In fact, the subway stopped, and it wasn't my stop. I got up and I ran out the door and waited 10 minutes for the next subway. So yeah, transit can be scary right now, for sure.
I don't, yeah, it absolutely is. And I think a lot of people who live in suburban or small urban or rural communities don't understand why big cities are having a different reaction to this, because I don't have a car. There's no place to park a car if I had a car. There's no parking where I live. And so transit, which was really great for most of my life, is suddenly terrifying. And I've been walking everywhere using the ravines, and I've been riding I've become one of those little bike riders, and then I'm really excited by it. It's interesting because it's a huge ab workout, and I of course have a beer belly because I've been drinking beer, and there's something about doing something like bike cycling everywhere is that your core gets really strong and taut, and your back does, and suddenly that little saggy belly you have becomes a perky belly. And so instead of having a nice little saggy belly that you could like hide with clothing, suddenly you have a very perky belly that all your ab muscles and back muscles want to help support and keep up and keep out. So I went from having like a little saggy beer gut to like a pregnancy belly, which is something that I wanted the whole world to know. So I put it on the internet right now.
Fantastic. I grow outwards this way, hence the muffin top. I'm not a muffin person. I like cupcakes, not muffins. But what can you do when it grows? And I'll walk. I'm not gonna run out in this heat. It's gross out there right now. So luckily I'm not one of those gays that like needs to have the beach weather body or anything like that. And plus I don't go to the beach anyways, because look at this skin. Does this look like it belongs out in the sun? It looks like, this pandemic's been actually a really good for my skin, funnily enough, because I'm not going out as much.
No one is forcing you.
As you can see, I'm a lovely ghost, gonna be transparent soon.
Well, I would love to introduce you, because I know that you're stuck at home, to our other guests that we have today. So why don't we bring Trish, Parry, and Kristin back, and we can start doing the news with each other. Are you excited about doing the news?
I'm gonna get a seat.
Fantastic. So Trish and Kristin, let's have you back up on online. And while we wait for them to come back in, Rob, why don't you tell us about some of the things you have coming up?
Well, we're talking about, there's talk everywhere about phase 3 here in Toronto, because Toronto entered it yesterday. Where I hold my live show, Gay AF Comedy, is at Comedy Bar. They are opening up again on the 6th with social distancing practice. I've received the whole thing, limited audiences. I am gonna go and start doing live comedy shows again, but I'm gonna do both live and online, because I think that's where we're at right now. And I want anyone who doesn't. There was actually a conversation in a group for our queer comics yesterday about, let's make sure that if people don't feel safe doing a live show, especially the queer comedians in our community, that they don't feel pressure or that they'll be ostracized or punished or anything like that. So I think for the future, anyone who feels comfortable coming out to live comedy, knowing that there's social distancing, you're going to be wearing your mask, and people are going to make those judgments for themselves. And for me, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
Fantastic. Well, I hope you get lots of people out, and that's September the 6th.
Not lots of people out. Not lots. We don't
Oh,
want
I
it to
hope
be
you
like
get
a
a
bar in
median. I
Florida.
hope you
Oh
get a
my God.
socially distanced amount of
Yeah,
people
no,
out.
like
Um,
an amount where you can actually like hear the laughter. That I'll be happy with that.
well, we have everyone back here, and so now it's time for our favorite part of the show. It's the panel discussion. It's the news. Trish, Robert, I know you haven't done this before, so what we do here is we take a pile of news articles from the previous week, between the last show and this one, and we just kind of set them in a file. And then when we have you on, we just pull them up, and each headline we should get 3 to 7 minutes out of. We don't have to time it. Kristin's going to do that for us, and she's our fact checker today. I'll keep us going around the circle while we're talking about it, and it's just the news, and it's something for us to have some fun with. So, are you ready for the news?
Right to me.
All right, here's our
Fantastic. What's the first
story.
headline?
Major League Baseball's really bad idea continues to get worse. So I don't know if you guys are baseball fans, but something like the baseball season started a week ago, and something like 20% of games have been canceled already because players keep getting COVID. The Florida Marlins, like all of them got it, and I forget which other team got it. So do you know how like the NBA went into like a bubble for everyone had to play together in like a weird sports like biodome thing? MLB didn't do that. They're just like, well, we have 3 cities we're playing and you guys go and be careful. But anyway, and it's going predictably badly.
Yeah.
So it looks like if you don't force people to follow rules, they tend not to follow them if there aren't actual rules in place. Trish, you're in the States where this is happening. Why don't we start with you? What's your opinion on Major League Baseball coming back and not handling this well?
As my husband's the one that's super into sports, so I get to hear about all this stuff all the time. Basically, I guess, baseball is supposed to be the least hands-on sport, but I heard that one baseball player has to interact with 60 different people, not including audience or spectators at a game. And so I guess, I don't know, the Marlins they played against the Phillies before they knew they had COVID. So they're all doomed. Yet I keep seeing games on TV. So I don't know.
I like your phraseology, though. I want the next COVID headline to be COVID-19. Who's doomed and who's not this week in COVID-19? Rob, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, it's funny with baseball because I don't consider baseball to be a sport where you have to be like a super fit athlete. And in fact, I see a lot of them chewing tobacco or they're smoking or something. I'm like, that's a pre-existing condition, isn't it? Like, aren't you actually one of those people at risk who should be staying home right now in general? But here they are. They're playing baseball, spitting out their whatever, and getting close with one another, which normally I'm all about getting close with other men. But in this case, I'm really not sure.
For me, baseball, and it was one of those things that were always church leagues when I was a kid. So baseball was a game that I ended up playing a lot. And it was one of the ones I liked the least. I felt the least in control. I was standing out in the field because they always put me out in the field all by myself and waiting for a ball to come whizzing at me at like super high speeds. And if I didn't catch it, it was going to hit me. And if I ran away from it, everyone would see me running away from it. And that would be a problem. When I finally learned to play touch football, which everyone's like, no, that's the scarier sport. None of the other boys were actually playing touch. They were going to tackle you once they got that flag. But I was in control. I knew the job was running away. And if I ran away fast enough, no one laughed at me. In fact, I was the hero if I ran away fast enough. Running away from bullies as a queer kid in gym class learning to play football was actually my best gym class ever. And then they kept trying to put me on that position, and I said no because I was scared. Sports are scary, everybody.
Well, baseball though is like a gentle game, right? Like baseball and cricket are basically the same thing, though if you know how to play one, you still don't understand the other one. But they're weird, ruled, arcane. Lots of strange things happen. Things which you can play if you're a bit older or a bit tubby or have lowered lung capacity from tobacco use, unlike football or hockey.
You know what else has a lot of rules and is arcane, is hard to understand? You can play if you're fat or if you're a smoker. Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes, that's what we should all be. That is what we need to be replacing MLB with, is live, socially distant D&D.
I would love to see more socially distant D&D. What's our next story, Kristin?
Our next story in science news. There was some interest in a human-sized bat picture that went viral on the internet, and Adam sent me this, and I was like, that's a pretty big bat. But I Googled it, and guess what? It's a fake. It's a fake. This is actually a flying fox, which is pretty darn big, but it's not the size of a human. It's kind of like the size of like a Jack Russell Terrier. So legitimately, it would be pretty scary if a Jack Russell Terrier with a 6-foot wingspan came flying at you, but it's not actually like an actual person-sized bat.
Well, at least, see, Kristin, you have some good scientific literacy there. That's everyone. Let's give Kristin a big round of applause for her science literacy. I think.
But we have some more fake science news.
That does lead us to our next, yeah.
More news and fake science. So Trump's favorite doctor believes in alien DNA, demon sperm, and hydroxychloroquine. And if you just stopped at demon sperm, I think we've all had weekends like that. But yeah.
Rob, you're probably the person here who has the most experience with demon sperm. So why don't you take this one first?
I don't know. I felt like when I looked at that bat in the last thing, I felt like that thing had demon sperm. That was scary. I have to talk about that flying fox bat thing first, because they are terrifying. I have seen. Not only have I seen one, like, because they do a breed of flying fox lives in Australia, and I won a trip to Australia once. But the thing is, we went in these parks, and you just see them hanging from trees, and there's like hundreds of them. So when you think of them as being the size of a Jack Russell Terrier, and they're all hanging upside down above you, it is the most terrifying thing. One of the most terrifying things I've ever experienced. And I would actually be more afraid of that than either alien DNA or demon sperm, to be honest. Demon sperm just sounds like it'll burn a bit, and you just gotta wipe it off really quick.
Trish, what are your thoughts on either Trump's new favorite doctor or the foxes?
Well, first, I just got to say, I also went to Australia and experienced bats, but my experience, I think, was far cooler. I, at one point, was at a music festival, and there was like, multiple stages, and one of them was like a techno stage, but above in the trees were clearly like hundreds of bats. But they were like making their like radar sound squeaky noises that like to the beat of the techno, and like it was super cool.
That is super cool.
Yeah, I just think the whole bat thing it's sad that there's a lot of misinformation about bats at the moment, like because of the whole COVID thing. Like, yeah, it's sad.
Puppies.
And then with that woman, I gather, she talks about how like, it's like the liberals and stuff that are the Illuminati, like that's the whole alien DNA thing or whatever, right? And like that's, but the Illuminati are definitely Republicans and royalty and billionaires. I mean, if you look at it, like, not that I know anything about this, but the Illuminati, came during, ancient Egypt and whatnot. And they gave their blood to all the people that became royalty, and therefore eventually down the line became billionaires. And then of course became Republicans because they wanted to retain their wealth. So I'm just saying, like, she's definitely got her facts wrong about the Illuminati.
Well, I've said this in private conversations. I'm now going to say it in public, but I miss pre-Trump. There was this sort of like conspiracy theory as a larf. Like, I enjoyed going on to YouTube and watching crackpot conspiracy theorists like deconstruct, like do literary analysis work on like the Super Bowl halftime show or a Britney Spears video. And there was a weird back and forth where people who were doing these pop culture concerts knew that this was happening, and so would put Illuminati imagery into their work so that these conspiracy analysts would be able to look at them and be like, no, see, they did this, and then they did this in the video, so of course they're the Illuminati. Triangles, they're everywhere. And it was so much fun, like, to go and find whatever piece of pop culture happened that week and to see what the conspiracy theorists came up with. And now, like, that entire entertainment side of conspiracy theories have dried up completely because it is black, white, it feels like you are either, no, they're not real and are not going to entertain them at all, or you are deep in the QAnon pot, where it's like, where we go one, we go all, and you somehow think that Donald Trump is a secret warrior inside the government there to uncover these conspiracies, which is not what he is doing at all.
Yes, I agree. You're either a rationalist or you're showing up at a pizza place with a shotgun. So on that note, let's move on to our next story. 66. Here's some, perhaps if we want to take our minds off the pandemic, let's think of some slightly worrying science news. So these are two stories. A 66-million-year-old deflated football-sized egg discovered in Antarctica. What was in it? Actually, they think it was probably an ancient marine dinosaur type thing. And scientists revive 100-million-year-old microbes from deep under the seafloor. They did some soundings in Antarctica, and they managed to bring some bacteria that had been frozen for millions of years back to life.
Trish, you seem to have all the knowledge about the bloodlines of the Illuminati, so I'm gonna ask you what scientists are doing right now.
I think they're doing stupid things. I think, science has gone too far. This is bad. We don't want Jurassic Park to happen. And on the other side of that, we don't want artificial intelligence. We don't want that either. They're just trying to eradicate us, man. I sound like one of those conspiracy theory people.
I don't think it's that conspiracy theory to think that the scientists might be doing experiments that we just don't need them to be doing right now, like focus on a cure for the pandemic, solve global warming, get us into space. We don't need to know about the deflated dinosaur egg.
Yeah, but if you're a paleontologist, you don't have an awful lot to add about virology, right? It's not like
it's not in their wheelhouse. Yeah, it's not in their wheelhouse.
It's like, I can't play the tuba, right? Like, it's like, you can't be like, well, Kristin, you've been playing the piano for 36 years. You must be able to play a theremin. No, I've tried and I suck. You have to actually learn how to do a thing.
So paleontologists got to do what paleontologists got to do?
Yeah.
They can just keep doing it in Antarctica and don't bring it back to our shores till they know it's safe.
Yeah.
Leave the demon monster dinosaur in Antarctica. Rob, do you have anything that you want to add to
I mean, I don't think we got anything to worry about with eggs. I mean, our society, we love eggs. I mean, you look through the history, we pop culturized eggs. Like remember the Tamagotchis that you had to like look after, and the egg would hatch. And then there was the Furbies, where like a weird owl creature comes out of an egg. Nothing's gonna be worse than that, to be quite honest. So I think, bring the egg. Maybe we'll get a new toy out of it. Maybe a new Saturday morning cartoon show.
Fantastic. Speaking of things that happen on weekends, we have some specific Tampa news that we've researched specifically because we have you as a guest, Trish. So let's move on to our next.
Now, unfortunately, the way that this is showing up in here, the notes are, anyway, it's not working right. But so you can't see the headline, but it says Tampa Bay Republicans react to losing the RNC, the Republican National Commission, whatever they call it. The thing where they pick who gets to be the candidate, which I don't know why they're doing it. It seems like pretty much a foregone conclusion. There it is. It was supposed to be in Tampa Bay. It has been canceled for the obvious reasons. And the Tampa Bay Republicans, by and large, were like, well, it sucks, but I guess they had to do it.
Now, Trish, that's a big hit to your local economy, not having all of those Republicans coming to visit your city in Florida. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, number one, I really thought the RNC was supposed to be in Jacksonville. So I'm a little confused. I know that Trump was in Tampa yesterday, but I don't know what he was doing.
Who knows what he's doing ever?
Clearly, I'm very in touch with what the Republicans are doing. I know there's supposed to be a big boat rally for Trump in Tampa, which is great. I also know that I work in a restaurant, and that means that probably everybody I'm serving, they're all conservative because liberals aren't going out. So I am literally living off of the generosity of the conservatives right now. I don't know. That's my take. I don't know. I thought it was in Jacksonville.
Oh, I don't know. I don't remember. It might have been in Jacksonville, and for some reason they just asked people in Tampa Bay because.
Oh,
I don't know.
It might have been like, that might have been like news in Tampa where Tampa reporters were talking to Tampans. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, like, half of Florida, people that don't like the Fringe. They're all terrible people.
I mean,
I thought you were going to show me some of the much worse news that we have. We have a lot of way worse news right now.
Than losing a convention during a pandemic. I definitely by that. Rob, is there anything that you want to add to this?
I have a question. I have a question for Trish, because when they talk about like the political divide in Florida, they call it a swing state still. But for everything here, it's like if you go to northern Florida, it's not. That's Republican country, and then I guess if you go down further south, that's more where the blue voting people are.
Yeah, so Tampa's basically split right down the middle.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, so like last election, I flew all the way from New York down here just so I could vote because you didn't want that one vote to
vote where it matters because you knew New York was gonna.
Well, no, I was just lazy and never re-registered to vote when I lived there, and conveniently I moved back, so I don't feel too bad about it.
I mean, and also Florida has a unique version of republicanism because you have the Cuban population who, due to old Cold War politics, are card-carrying Republicans, even though the modern divide in the parties, because of the new race politics and the old race politics, doesn't quite line up with what a Latinx, even living in Florida, even with Cuban heritage, might want. So you have a large amount of Cuban Latinx people who are from Republican families because the Republicans kind of were anti-Castro for a really long period of time.
Yeah, there's that. And a lot of them are Catholics. So there's the abortion issue, of course, which, we never can just put to bed for some reason. Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, Florida's interesting. And so most people know not to talk about politics because it's a bad idea. But I mean, you have obnoxious people on both sides. But I don't know. I guess I'm good at being diplomatic and communicative with them.
That's the reason we have you on the show.
On that note, we have another story that's moving on from Florida. More news about Florida. But this is a general issue about social benefits towards, the benefits towards the businesses, right? Should strip clubs, all of them, let's include more than Tampa Bay, strip clubs and adult businesses get paycheck protection money? And I say, why not?
So, okay, so you're going to start with that. Kristin, why don't you take the lead? You say why not? Why not?
Why not? People, it's like there are businesses that are doing stuff where people work there and are no longer able to work there, because I don't think strip clubs, I don't think you can socially distance in a strip club any better than really at all, any kind of or other sex work professions. It's pretty hard to do those safely. We had some chat about that in our Cupid show, Adam, about some ideas, but I don't think those have been well implemented. So if people are out of work and businesses aren't able to make money, then this is what this is for, right? It seems silly to exclude them, but what do I know?
So Rob, you work in a sex positive circle of queer comedians. Why don't you take the lead on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I know comedians who call themselves sex positive. We don't all get together and talk about it, but I mean, a comedy club, a strip club, what's the difference? I'll tell you. There's no stripping. But they're both funny. They're both funny. But this is the thing, like, how do you tip a stripper with social distancing? I just feel like, like you come in and you get like one of those like long clamp things and you're like, here's your $1.
The way old people get jars off the top shelf, you have one of those that you're like, yeah.
Or like lap dances just aren't going to work out. It'd be more like an ankle dance in order to honor the distancing thing. But yeah, I mean, in a place where there's going to be lots of fluids, I just don't know that it's a great idea. In a comedy club, where what we're going to be doing is we're going to have like the comedian's going to stand much further back, no talking, no like crowd work or anything like that. And you know what? Stripping sort of depends on crowd work.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I mean, give protection pay because people. This is the dilemma. Like this is like even talking about comedy shows or any sort of live entertainment when you go into a room and everyone's interacting. This is the kind of thing where we need to be listening to our listening to our government officials and making these decisions completely based on safety and stuff like that. Sorry, that wasn't that funny, but it's It's kind of serious because what do we do? What do we do?
Well, Trish, I mean, it was written in the article was written out of Tampa Bay. So, what do you think about paycheck protections for people who work in legalized sex work, where things like stripping?
Well, I don't really know why we need it because the strip clubs are open. They're just serving food.
So she doesn't give you a lap dance; she just gives you actual tacos. Okay.
Is the food
Oh
good?
no! Oh Jesus Christ! I'm not sure if maybe they're not all open, but there's definitely some that are open. I don't know how tipping works. I mean, maybe they do their dance and then they put a mask on, or maybe they're dancing with masks on. You know, the people aren't there to look at their faces. You know, like people tip me, like I get close to them. It's just with a mask on. Also, what was the other point? Oh, I know that during like when they were shut down, I know they were doing video. They were doing it basically like cam girls. So like they were doing like just like this talk show. They were doing this.
Show your boobs on Zoom. Why not?
Yeah, but otherwise, like I don't see a difference between that. And like, you know what? If the government can say that's a real job and make that business, and those people pay taxes like anybody else, then they should absolutely be offering those same loans.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. Actually,
I vote for on this one. Like, yeah, if you are legitimized by the government, no matter what the job is, you should get the same benefits from the government for having done that job and paying taxes on that job, 100%. But I do have to disagree with you, Trish. And my third revealing thing in today's show, if I can't see someone's face, I'm not really as in. I need to see the face. I need to see the face. That's part of.
You might be right.
Yeah.
You need to make an emotional connection with your stripper.
I need an emotional connection with my stripper. It's absolutely true.
Moving on, we have a couple of feel-good stories from Canada. Canadian Tire store is forced to close after every item scans in as Mr. Potato Head. This only happened in a couple of stores in, I believe it was Whitby and Lindsay, two not very large communities. But you know, that's a funny experience we can all imagine having, that you try to go and buy like a, I don't know, lawnmower or what else do they sell at Canadian Tire? Some kitchen towels, and it's
pots.
Potato Head.
Bicycles, sports equipment.
I didn't even know they sold Mr. Potato Heads. I don't think I've ever seen a Canadian Tire Mr. Potato Head, but apparently they do.
I kind of want to start with this one because this makes me think about that whole thing that Trump is saying about how paper ballots will somehow invalidate the election, where actually everything goes to show that things are more hackable when they're electronic. Like having an actual physical paper trail, mail-in ballots, those things make things safer. So when we see something like an entire store, for reasons that nobody understands, scanning every item in as a Mr. Potato Head, we can see how even without anyone trying, things can just get screwed up when we put everything online. And we're going to end up in that Simpsons Treehouse of Terror opening where Homer's pressing Obama, 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 but he's getting the other guy. And this story makes me think of that. So,
yeah.
Rob?
Yeah, it feels like this, it sounds like it's the same people behind the Bitcoin Twitter attack, perhaps.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, there's just people up to shenanigans. And I bet you there was some tech savvy kid whose boss pissed him off and he was like, I'm gonna make everything into Mr. Potato Head. Ha 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 ha. And I mean, I think that's a great bit of I mean, I wouldn't call it activism, but it's I appreciate, like, I don't like the Twitter hack where it's like doing the, like, Bitcoin's nefarious on the best of days, but like Mr. Potato Head, lovely, innocent. This sound like, to me, this sounds like a sale. Like, everyone, it's Mr. Potato Head Day. Everything in our store is the price of a Mr. Potato Head. They really missed an opportunity with this, is what I think.
Yeah,
Trish,
I'll
what are
be
your
showing
thoughts?
up. Yeah.
Oh, well, I just wish I would have been one of those first people there that was trying to buy a TV. Do they sell TVs? I've only been to them a few times. Do they sell groceries too? Do they sell
No.
everything? No.
They're not an everything store, but they're nearly an everything store.
Yeah.
I keep getting confused because it's Canadian Tire, but I don't gather it's really a tire store.
Yeah.
They do have tires.
though.
I do want to speak to this whole thing about you not realizing that they would carry Mr. Potato Heads, because don't you remember those commercials in the 80s where they, like at Christmas, they had all the toys. And there was like, at Canadian Tire, you can live like Santa and save like Scrooge.
Yeah, I do remember the Scrooge guy, but I don't specifically remember a Mr. Potato Head.
I'm sure they were there.
Yeah.
We don't have the excellent Super Bowl commercials in Canada, but we do have the longest running campy commercials that everyone falls in love with the minute they see them. So that is the advantage to living in Canada, is long running camp commercials that just like save like Santa, like give like Santa, save like Scrooge. And that was a great thing. So Kristin, yeah, you missed the ball on that one. Before we move to the next story, anything last that you'd like to add, Trish?
Just now that you say that, I mean, it is looking more and more likely. My husband's Canadian, and my daughters have Canadian, and it's entirely probable we will move up there soon, and I will become more familiar with the Canadian Tire.
It's a good place to buy some things. They have really good sales sometimes. Just if you need lawn furniture or something like that. And I was just going to say that. It was like, I need some like backyard lawn furniture. I really wish I'd been there and could have bought it for the price of a Mr. Potato Head. That would have been great.
Exactly.
I just love this idea that your daughter is half Canadian, by the way. It's like, depending on what day, you get someone who's saying sorry and a boot. So that's new to me. I love it. I love that idea.
Okay, next story. This is again another little feel-good story. Prominent author Jessie Wente is the first Indigenous chair of the Canada Council for the Arts, which is the major granting organization for the arts in Canada. And this is just a nice thing. There's no twist to it. It's just they put a guy in charge of this thing who's probably good. That's all.
No, it's Anishinaabe.
Yeah.
I mean, a big thing for the past, since Canada colonized, but in the past couple of years, especially since the 150th Canada Day that happened 2 or 3 years ago, and I think you were in Canada for that, Trish. We've been talking about Native rights in Canada and how we have respected or not respected treaties, and how we have taken unceded land and used that without having any treaties. So this I feel like is a step in the right direction. Mm-hmm. Trish, do you have any thoughts about more high-powered people from minority communities taking over important offices like this?
Well, it's certainly a good move forward. Sorry, this is a very serious issue to me, and I feel like I must think on this if I had known about this article. It would be nice to see more minorities taking any kind of lead, being given any sort of opportunities.
Do you have in the U.S. Our Canadian listeners are probably, I'm sure, because we are very familiar with our CBC, our TVO, our Canada Council. We make jokes about the Canada Council and who they promote and who they don't promote and who they give money to and not. Do you have arts boards at that level in the States, whether statewide or, I know there's grants and granting bodies down there, but how does that feel like that works for you?
We have, I can speak to, we have, the State Arts Council, and we have the City Arts Council, and there is hypothetically funding on the national level, but that's super difficult to get, and I haven't really tried. It's more for the $1 million, budgeted events. I wouldn't say that. God, I kind of feel I don't know. I look at the Arts Council here in Tampa, and I don't think it would be difficult for a person of any race to be on that board or be one of the people that vets the grant applications, because I think actually those kind of positions, just like being a board member where usually you're unpaid, those kinds of positions are for people that are unusually driven to work in a kind of behind the scenes capacity that isn't built on ego. So for example, you'll have somebody that's driven by ego wanting to become the director of a theater company, right? That's easy. But the kind of person that wants to head up something like that is, I think, a different kind of, I'm not making much sense here. I do think that the pathway, like for me being a producer of my festival, right? Like I basically had to learn so much about business and grants and stuff. And most of it's because I'm super driven to learn these things, but there's not really a big straightforward path to that. You know, you usually have to like get involved in something and then you move up in the ranks for whatever reason. And then you learn things that you didn't know that you could have learned. So, I mean, perhaps in that sense, minorities probably have less of an opportunity because they tend to come from less fiscally sound backgrounds and therefore don't have the kind of the means to take financial risks early on to end up in a job like that. Like,
so maybe a stewardship. Yeah, no, I totally hear what you're saying. I think actually having listened to people from BIPOC communities speaking about this, there is need for more stewardship to get people to those positions quicker and to reduce the risks of them following those paths to those positions. So yeah, if it is a trickier path to get to and it doesn't have that immediate glory, like being a high member on a granting council, then make that a more attractive position for people from minority backgrounds to have them.
Yeah.
No, that's really
even like as children, like in Tampa, like our goal for this year before we turned into a digital festival was to, one of our goals was to give out free tickets to all the underserved communities in Tampa, because unfortunately here and probably in Canada, you know, minorities tend to dovetail with poverty. And then people that are, you know, they don't have a lot of disposable income don't tend to go to the theater or anything. So then you have kids that aren't growing up with that sort of influence. And then they don't even end up seeing that pathway as a possibility. So we were trying to get in on the ground level by doing that. And we'll try to do that course next year, providing we're live. But yeah, like it's just like systemic racism. I mean, I guess it is systemic racism. Like it's something that must be tackled on a lot of levels, I think. And it's great that you guys have seemed to be reaching that level, because racism is very much there, just as it is here.
Well, I mean, we put that up because we thought it was a feel-good story, and it is. It's a fantastic story that is. But no, the thing is, it does evoke a conversation that's a lot bigger, a lot deeper than when you bring up comparisons and start looking at other places. I believe I heard someone speaking maybe at an event for Lewis that just having faces in high places isn't enough for different communities. You actually have to build the structures that allow that to be easily accessible to all and bring up the people from the bottom who aren't always helped when we just focus on individual success stories. So, and that's a huge part of tackling systemic issues. So thank you for bringing us back down to the reality and not just being wooed by Black and brown faces in high places, because it's not just about that, it's about solving these problems for everyone. That is the end of this part of our show. I want to give one more shout out to Robert Watson and Trish Parry for being part of our show this afternoon. You've both done a wonderful job. You've been great guests. We're so happy to have you with us today. If you get a chance, please go to the Tampa Bay Fringe Digital Fringe Festival at tampabay.fringe.com. What is that online?
Right.
Give us the online.
TampaFringe.org.
TampaFringe.org. And Robert Watson, where can we find some of your stuff online?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on all the socials as This Is Rob Watson. And then if you want to follow Gay AF Comedy on Twitter, especially Instagram. You want a daily funny meme, go to Gay AF Comedy Instagram. Our weekly on Facebook, we do a queer comedy spotlight, which connects you to queer Canadian comedy content from across the country. And of course, when you like or follow these things, you're going to get to know about what shows are happening either online or live, whatever your comfort level is.
And in 2 weeks, we will be back here, Kristin and myself, on YouTube for This Is a Talk Show. We have some really excellent guests with us next week, which we have every week, excellent guests. But next week, we have comedian from Hotlanta, Mark Kendall, and he is quite saucy. And we're also going to have from the Canadian Outback, Andrew Lopetan, doing some lap guitar and some beautiful music for us. So please come back and visit us in 2 weeks. Until then, Kristin will be singing you out, and this has been a talk show.
Okay, everyone, we're going to end with a song by one of my favorite Toronto music legends, Mr. Fred Speck, and I always like to sing this song before a set break or, intermission, even though this is the end of the show, because it helps you make a decision. But maybe when you're thinking about what next digital theater experience you're going to be trying, this could be another way to help you find that out. If you're on a sinking ship and you don't want to take a dip and no one has a coin to flip, rock, paper, scissors. God and Satan, they do it all the time over the souls that stand in line. It's just like some funny mime. Rock, paper, scissors. Don't try this at home when you are all alone. Just give that dog a bone. Rock, paper, scissors. An army of hungry guys. Well, who's gonna get that last piece of pie? Now here is something you can try. Rock, paper, scissors. The bebop line would be such a bore, and at that tempo it just soars. But those jazz cats, they can't stop for rock, paper, scissors. 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 See you in 2 weeks, everyone. Goodbye.